Shalom. I'll start by giving all the praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Aruchak Double honor to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone who rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations unto the hopeful elect tabernacle of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And I just wanted to respond to this little video here. This is Haman Malone, the fathead snake. And then you got this lost soul right here, being trained up by this devil. All right. And the basis of this video is proving that salvation can come unto the heathen because Timothy's father was a literal Edomite Greek. So from their stance, Timothy's father was an Edomite Greek. So therefore, Timothy was an Edomite, and Paul still took him in. And they used Pastor Dowell, which, to me, that guy, not only is he a false prophet, a false teacher, he's no different than a Christian. He just knows that he's an Israelite. But they're no different than the Christian church. Him and his organization, they're basically Christians. And he's off on a lot of stuff. He teaches that Job is an Edomite. He teaches that the so-called white man is not the Edomites. The heathens can make it. Like he's a Christian. All right. But they're using his argument because he's an Israelite, and they're gonna use it against the One West because they know that we teach that Timothy's father was an Israelite who was living after the manner of the Greeks. He came up in a Greek way of life. All right, he didn't know he was an Israelite, but his mother, she grew up a Jew. Okay, so they're gonna use Pastor Dowell, who teaches that he's an Israelite, and use his argument against what we teach, which ultimately, you both are wrong. All right, Pastor Dowell's wrong, and y'all are wrong. But let me play it, and we'll let y'all listen.
Dowell's folks, I'm not hating on them the way they think I hate on them. I actually want to play two clips, Corey, that you and I basically would agree with, and we could use against One West Hebrew Israelites.
Okay.
It's clip 4 and 5. I don't know if you have a different order, but it's the one about Esther and the one about Timothy. There's two different ones.
Okay.
But yeah, check.
I don't mean to do this, but all he needs is like a band or a ribbon band tied around his head, this bald head. He remind me of Leonardo, the Ninja Turtle. I'm just that was the first thing I thought of, man, just looking at this guy, man. Jake is lost, man. And you could tell that he's very impressionable, and he's just being trained by this damn serpent. So yeah, this is a bad look for him. But anyway, let me let it continue.
He makes some good points here. Check this out.
A man by the name of Timothy, who had a father who was a Greek, but his mother was a Yehudi, or a Jewish, which you will read in the book. Him is the one that Paul taught. Now, if you listen to a lot of these doctrines today, they would say based on the nationality of his father, he couldn't be an Israelite. But that's after the flesh. That's not after the spirit. Because now Paul took him, circumcised him, and then not only that, gave him instructions to ordain elders in every city. So Paul, they didn't, if the Greek man, his father, was a white man at that time, Paul didn't use that as a means to discriminate this man and his love for Yah, his love for Jesus.
Yeah, but the issue with that was his father wasn't a so-called white man. All right, and you would have to think if he was an actual Edomite, and we know that his mother Eunice was a Jew, an Israelite woman. Don't you know that she would be going against the law if she indeed married an Edomite, she would be that would be against the law, because according to the law, an Israelite woman is not to marry with an Edomite or a heathen for that matter. All right. If he was in fact an Edomite, then that would make Timothy a tear, and that's what you're teaching. Let's get real quick. Was it Exodus? Let me see something real quick. Let me see. All right, let me go to Exodus 20 then. All right, let me type this up. Let me find the law real quick so we can prove the point. Yeah, so I passed it. Let me see. All right, let me go here real quick. And this is concerning, the Canaanites. Once we went into their land to possess it, we were not to, make any marriages with them or make any covenants with them. Deuteronomy 7:2, it says, "And when the Lord thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them, and thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son." All right. And even though this applies to the Canaanites, it also applies to the other nations as well. Let's go to Exodus 34. Is Exodus 34:15, and it says, instead of 14, it says, "For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous power, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice, and thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods." And the same thing, if you give your daughters over to uh, their sons, um, she could get turned out, and she will definitely follow the God of her husband, whatever God that he serves, whatever practice that he's into, she's going to go right into that, right? So Eunice would have been in total violation if she was literally married to an actual Edomite, all right? So we know just that alone in itself, she couldn't have been married to an Edomite. So what was this Greek? Let's not act like to be Greek was, one nationality. Everybody under the Greek Empire that was that was Hellenized and spoke Greek was called Greek. You could have been a Greek Edomite. You could have been a Greek Israelite. You could have been a Greek Moabite. All right. Everybody that was under the sovereignty or jurisdiction of the Greek Empire. You was considered a Greek as long as you was speaking Greek and worshiping Greek gods and keeping Greek customs. All right. So what Greek was Timothy's father? Now, when you go into the history, there was a lot of Jakes that were scattered amongst the Greeks. This is why the Lord said this. This is John 7 and verse 33. It says, then said Yahushai unto them, yet a little while I am with you, and then I go unto them that sent me. You shall seek me, and shall not find me. And where I am, thither you cannot come. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that he shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? So why were they saying this about the Lord when he said that where he's going to go, you will not find me? All right. Why did he say that? Why did he say you're going to go to the dispersed, the diaspora, who are among the Gentiles? Now, what are these Gentiles? What in what context? Well, if you actually look it up, the word is Helen. All right, Helen. All right. So even though it says Gentile there in its rightful context, when you read it in the Greek, it's talking about an Helen, which is basically a Greek, a person who keeps Greek customs, who worship Greek gods. Okay. You had our people that were scattered all throughout Greece. That's why Paul sent that letter, actually two letters, two epistles to the church at Corinth, which is in Greece. And those people, they was fresh out of that Greek world. They had just got out of the Greek prison of their mind, and that's why Paul had to lay down the order on them. They was totally out of order because it was, they came up out of that Greek way, which was, the fashion of the Greeks was, it was super carnal. All right. Let me get the other translation. Let me get the NLT. It says the Jewish leaders were puzzled by this statement. Where is he planning to go? They asked, is he thinking of leaving the country and going to the Jews in other lands? Maybe he will even teach the Greeks. NIV, it says, the Jews said to one another, where does this man intend to go that we cannot find him? Will he go to Slakia, will he go where our people live scattered among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? Because our people, they were scattered, they were dispersed. All right. So you know that they had to have, when they were mingled among them, they had to have learned their ways, just like they did with the Canaanites, you know, uh, uh, earlier in the history. That's what our people was always doing. That's why the Lord, when we first went into the land of Canaan, he was saying that, don't make no no covenants with them. Don't give in marriage to them, and all their altars and all their groves and images, you are to destroy it because it will become a stumbling block to you. Let's get I think it's in Psalms 10. Let me see. I think it's learn their works. There we go. It's Psalms 106 and 35, and this is in the NET. I'll start at 34. It says, they did not destroy the nations as the Lord had commanded them to do. They mixed in with the nations and learned their ways. See that? And our people always did that. They would, wherever they were scattered, wherever they went migrated, they will start to fall away from their own heritage and the customs that come with that and absorb the ways of the nations of people that they're living amongst. Our people will go over to Mecca, they'll go over to Saudi Arabia or over there in the Middle East and learn how to speak fluent Arabic and become a fully devout Muslim. That ain't their religion, but that's our people to this very day. All right, it says they worship their idols, which became a snare to them. Same thing applied during the Greek Empire. And this in that particular captivity, they were forced into it. So how do you ignore that history when you want to deal with Timothy's father? How do you not know that his patrilineal ancestors weren't the Jews who were forced to become Greeks? How do you just leave out that impactful part of history? That what happened there left a big impact. It affected our people majorly to where they became a whole different identity. Let's get it. Let's get that real quick. Let's go into it in the Maccabees. And we're gonna go to the Good News translation. And because they leave this portion of history out, this is why they can't understand this. So they'll off top, they'll think that Timothy's father was a heathen, an actual uh, biological heathen, an Edomite, an actual Greek, and not an Israelite. So let's get I want to get first Mac. I'm gonna start with first Maccabees, dealing with what Antiochus Epiphanes did, which they know this history because we bring it out a lot. And we're gonna start at verse 40. It is 41. It says, Antiochus now issued a decree that all nations in his empire should abandon their own customs and become one people. This is why everybody became a Greek, because this was the king enforcing or imposing, all right, his custom, his will upon the rest of the people. All right. All the Gentiles and even many of the Israelites submitted to this decree. They all gave in. They adopted the official pagan religion, offered sacrifices to idols, and no longer observed the Sabbath. Once they started to do that, they were no longer Jews. They were straight Greeks. The king also sent messengers with a decree to Jerusalem and all the towns of Judea, ordering the people to follow customs that were foreign to the country. He ordered them not to offer burnt offerings, grain offerings, or wine offerings in the temple, and commanded them to treat Sabbaths and festivals as ordinary work days. Just like even in this society, they don't honor the Sabbath day. If we go and tell our bosses, "Hey, on this particular day is my Sabbath day. Um, I would like to take that day off." They're gonna find somebody else, man. Somebody that's willing to work that day, and they'll replace you quick. Esau don't care about that, man. It says they were even ordered to defile the temple and the holy things in it. They were commanded to build pagan altars, temples, and shrines, and to sacrifice pigs and other unclean animals there. They were forbidden to circumcise their sons, which is why by the time of the Roman Empire, when Yahushua and the 12 and all of them were around, and even during the time of Apostle Paul, a lot of the people that they went to, that they were reaching, they were uncircumcised. And the circumcision, the Jews that grew up still keeping those customs, They looked down upon any person that was uncircumcised, whether you was a Jew by lineage or not. So they would call you the uncircumcision. You're like a heathen, okay? Because that was the part of the covenant, the Abrahamic covenant. All right, it says they were forbidden to circumcise their sons and were required to make themselves ritually unclean in every way they could, so that they would forget the law which the Lord had given through Moses and would disobey all his commands. The penalty for disobeying the king's decree was death. So a lot of our people had to die in order to, keep, their traditions and the laws, the statutes. All right. So this is what happened. This is We can't ignore this history when we talk about the Greeks of the New Testament. This is what happened to the Israelites. All right. He went and burnt the books up, the books of the law. This is what he did. Jumping down to verse 59, it says, on the 25th of the month, these same evil people offered sacrifices on a pagan altar erected on top of the altar in the temple. Mothers who had allowed their babies to be circumcised were put to death in accordance with the king's decree. Their babies were hung around their necks, and their families and those who had circumcised them were put to death. But many people in Israel firmly resisted the king's decree and refused to eat food that was ritually unclean, i.e., swine, anything off the pig, and other abominations. It says they preferred to die rather than to break the holy covenant and eat unclean food, and many did die. In his anger, the Most High made Israel suffer terribly. So this is what happened. So imagine, this happening for generations. So their children that was born, they was born straight into the Greek fashion. They just grew up a Greek, just like how Moses came up in the Pharaoh's house. So he only knew how to, speak the language of the Egyptians, and he wore the Egyptian attire. He grew up an Egyptian until the Lord finally came to him. All right. Let's get a second Maccabees. Let's go to the Ptolemy. All right, who ruled over Egypt. Ptolemy, I believe it was Philopator. And it says this is Second Maccabees 6:1. This is why a lot of these Christians don't like to go into these books, because it brings it all out. It gives you the full perspective. So now you want to understand why the Lord was, you know, saying there's no difference between a Jew nor a Greek. Look at the history. All right, how they fell into this, and then you had the circumcision, who was no better because they was being hypocrites and they wasn't following the law either. So they both had one way back to the Father, that was through Yahweh Shai. They had to believe on the gospel and have faith. Anyway, it says not long after that, the king sent an elderly Athenian to force the Jews to abandon their religion and the customs of their ancestors. All right, and Timothy's father, his forefathers could have fell right into this, which would make sense why he was a Greek, but he was still an Israelite. It says he was also to defile their temple by dedicating it to the Olympian god Zeus, which in the Romans version of it is Jupiter. It says the temple on Mount Gerizim was to be officially named Temple of Zeus, the god of hospitality, as the people who lived there had requested. The oppression was harsh and almost intolerable. Gentiles filled Salakia. There's the damn detector going off. You put some bread in the oven. Yeah, Salakia on that. That was the detectors going off. But to continue on, It says, yeah, it says, the oppression was harsh and almost intolerable. Gentiles filled the temple with drinking parties and all sorts of immorality. You know, basically, getting super drunk. Okay, drinking all the wine and liquor, and they was engaging in orgies, doing all type of just debauched, shit. It says they even had intercourse with prostitutes there. Forbidden objects were brought into the temple, and the altar was covered with detestable sacrifices prohibited by our law. It was impossible to observe the Sabbath, to celebrate any of the traditional festivals, or even so much as to admit to being a Jew. So you can't even confess that being an Israelite, that's your nationality, that's your national origin. You couldn't even say it. You're a Greek. You see that? So they was forced. All right, but did that mean that by nationality, by blood, by lineage, that they were no longer Jews? No, they were still Jews, but if they had to, mark on paper, their ethnicity, they would have to mark Greek. They would have to check Greek. Just like today, Jake got to check African American. No, you're an Israelite of the tribe of Judah or wherever's respective tribe. But now you have to check African American. All right. It says each month when the king's birthday was celebrated, the Jews were compelled by brute force to eat the intestines of sacrificial animals. All right, and we was going into this at camp. I believe that was yesterday. That no new thing under the sun. As Jake was being Hellenized through captivity, through slavery, they was also being forced a certain diet. So Jake got accustomed to eating this crap, just like in this captivity. Jake, was being fed scraps from the slave master, and they called it soul food, which a lot of that shit is very unhealthy. Which is why our people suffer, have all type of ailments and diseases, eating chitlins, man. When I read this in this translation, that I immediately thought about that intestines of sacrificial animals. Well, the main animal that they was sacrificing on the altar that was abominable was swine, swine's flesh. So what's the intestines of swine? That's chitterlings, man. And Jake eat that today. You go down south, Jake tear that up with some hot sauce on it. No new thing under the sun, man. So yeah, if Jake was eating some damn chitlins, he was more than likely a damn Greek. Because to be a Jew, you would detest that. But that's what was going on. So just think about by the time you had the scribes, the Pharisees, the chief priests, you had all them in the circumcision in Judea, and they know about the Jakes that were a part of this diaspora, and they were living after this manner, eating chitlins, bald heads. They probably had Greek brand marks on them. So they just knew in their head the Lord is clearly not dealing with them. Well, hey, that's Timothy's father. All right. In his mind, he was a Greek. So he was not, he wasn't a believer like that. But continuing on, it says, then during the festival in honor of the wine god Dionysus, they were required to wear ivy wreaths on their heads and march in procession. And he also had them, mark themselves with the ink from the ivy, and that would be like a identity mark to identify them as devotees to that particular idol. Okay, like a imprint, and that's pretty much it's similar to the charagma. All right, where Esau, he's gonna brand mark you again, but he's gonna put a C hip in you, but it has all your information where you could be identified. And guess what? That's to help identify you as one of his servants. That you serve this man, you serve the beast. Is to serve as a badge of servitude. It's a digital all. So it's no different. Okay. It says, on the advice of Ptolemy, the neighboring Greek cities were also instructed to require Jews to eat the sacrifices. They were told to put to death every Jew who refused to adopt the Greek way of life. You see that? So they had to live in the way of Greeks. So they had to be Greeks. It was easy to see that hard times were ahead. For example, two women were arrested for having their baby circumcised. They were paraded around the city with their babies hung from their breasts. Then they were thrown down from the city wall. On another occasion, Philip was told that some Jews had gathered in a nearby cave to observe the Sabbath in secret. So they had to go somewhere in a secret cave somewhere and keep the Shabbat, man. That's how bad it got. Philip attacked and burned them all alive. They had such respect for the Sabbath that they would not fight to defend themselves. And they knew if we was doing that, that would be an easy day for them to come and attack us, knowing that we weren't going to fight back because it was the Sabbath day. So this is you know crucial history that these Christians like to ignore. All right. So by this time, you still had a lot of our people that was in that mindset and that way of living, but some of them were starting to come out of that once they heard the gospel. So yeah, there's no difference between a Jew nor a Greek. But now Timothy's father, all right, he was one of those people, man, that he was just into that lifestyle. But his mother knew that he was an Israelite. That's why she got with him. And you don't know if her belief, her faith, because Timothy came in through his grandmother and his mother. They were in the faith. All right. Now I'm pretty sure he didn't live the full life of being an Israelite as a child because of his father, but once his mother converted and came into the truth, she started to bring him up. All right. Acts 16:1, it says, then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek. Okay. And her being a believer, who knows if she could have had him she could have sanctified him. Because remember what he told the church of Corinth, which is in Greece, that a unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife. Now we forget that. Now we don't know, because the scriptures don't give detail about it, but it could have been a possibility. We don't know. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 13, it says, and the woman which have an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. And I'm pretty sure, even though he had a difference in religion, he was pleased to dwell with her. Because I'm sure, her being a woman that came up, she was in order. So no, she didn't give him a hard time. She, didn't say, I'm going to divorce you and get with an Israelite brother that believe. No, that would have been adultery. He was an unbeliever, but he was pleased to dwell with her. Okay. It says, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. And IOIC, they stay breaking this scripture right here. They stay breaking that. It's like this scripture don't even exist in the IUIC. Because they teach those men that if she ain't, you know, with it, if she's not on the level that you on, as far as believing and keeping the high holy days and all that other stuff, then you got to get rid of her. And that is so not scriptural. All right. She's bound under her husband by the law as long as he lives. So what the hell are you doing? What type of counsel are you giving? It says, else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. All right. But we don't know. This is, it was just a little given. It didn't matter because this was really about, the history of the Acts of the Apostles and what they went through in the ministry, you know, you know, time after Yahushua left. All right, the missions and the journeys and all the different things that they did. All right, within the ministry and all the people that came in. All right, so I'm pretty sure they understood that. All right, just because it says that he was a Greek, that doesn't mean he was an Edomite. You had Israelites that were Greek, but some of them were coming into the faith and they were believing. You even had some Greeks that came to the Passover to see the Lord, and these wasn't no actual Edomite Greeks. Yeah, John 13. Let's see, damn, did I skip it? Hold up. Yeah, bear with me real quick while I look for it. You had some Greeks that came to the Passover, man. Okay, Salaki. So it was John 12. So this is John 12 and 20. It says, and there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. What are these Greeks coming up to worship at the feast for? Because we know that Israelite males, 3 times out of the year, they're supposed to come up to Jerusalem to worship at the feast. So who are these Greeks? They were Israelites. Okay. So this dude, Pastor Dowell, this guy, he's a straight Christian with a Christian understanding. The Lord ain't dealing with him, and I guess y'all think this makes you right because he's teaching the same uh, narrative that you teach. No, you both are wrong. All right, Dowell's wrong, and y'all are wrong. Timothy's father had to have been an Israelite, but he lived the Greek after the Greek way of living. All right, so Timothy was an Israelite. Ain't no heathens coming into this thing at all. Titus included. Titus, he was an Israelite. All right, that Ethiopian eunuch that Philip baptized was an Israelite. We can prove all these things, man. Cornelius, Israelite. That Roman centurion that had faith, that had his servant healed, Israelite. These were all Israelites, man. And the jig is up on you Christians, man. More and more people are leaving. So that should let you know what it is. So that's you know, pretty much the end of the lesson right there. I want to go into that, and Lord willing, this was edifying. Call Lord La Yahweh Shai. Shalom.